Some spiritual teachers, especially from the yogic tradition, have been teaching that desire is the root of all suffering. And they also teach celibacy as an important tool to achieve self realization or enlightenment.
Yes.
Is there any truth to restricting sexual energy to be beneficial in that way? And also, what about this idea of the root of all suffering is desire?
The root of all suffering is resistance to the natural self. What they're kind of saying in their own language is that many times, because of negative and fear-based belief systems, people can become caught up in the desire for things in an overstated way. They can go too far. They can overcompensate. They might even go into the idea of addiction. But these things have more to do with belief in disempowerment than they do with the idea of actual sexual energy. Anything can be used in a positive or a negative way. So what they're simply saying is, don't do it negatively. Don't relate to these energies in a negative way. Now, for themselves, in terms of promoting these particular methodologies, this may have more to do simply with their belief system, that they may fear that if they don't impose those kinds of restrictions on themselves in the way that they choose to, in using that permission slip in that way, that they might have a fear-based belief that they would overcompensate. And so they're simply putting it out there that there may be other people like them who are holding on to fear-based beliefs that would cause them to go too far in one direction, so to speak, get out of balance in a way with those particular relationships of energy to themselves. So they're simply saying, if you have that particular belief system like we do, this can be of some assistance to you to do these things in this way. But still, with honest self-investigation, you can decide whether that technique is true for you, or whether you have a different way of handling your relationship to your own energy in a way that allows you to know that you will simply not go too far, that you will choose to remain in balance, and that you can use those particular ideas in a more balanced way.
Various spiritual traditions teach that the only way to true lasting fulfillment and happiness is by letting go of your selfish desires and dedicating your life to serving others.
Well, and again, in a sense, the idea is that service to others is service to self because you belong to a whole community. So the idea is that allowing yourself not to necessarily have to overly focus on yourself allows you to simply receive what you need when you need to receive it automatically, knowing that that automatically works in perfect timing means you don't really have to pay that much attention to what you believe you need because you know that you will automatically receive what you need. And by acting on your passion in a way that is service to others, you will automatically receive the things you need. So service to others automatically becomes the service to self at the rate and at the level that actually is relevant for you. So you don't really have to focus on it.
Okay. Do thoughts become things? Is what I'm focused on going to manifest? Because not every thought becomes a thing. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know which thoughts are going to manifest and which ones aren't. So it gets kind of uncomfortable to think about. Do my thoughts create my reality? Or is it my vibrational energy? A lot of things that are so detailed, it's really hard to believe that I created. I feel like
All
it
right.
existed before I was born.
Well, to some degree, obviously, if you chose to be born in a certain reality, then you're going along to some degree with a consensus reality that has been created before you decided to join it. And so in joining it, yes, you might be aligning with some of the things that were already pre-established before you decided to jump in the game. Nevertheless, you're still matching that frequency yourself and creating it yourself as your version of it in order to have an experience of what the collective consensus consciousness says are the rules of the game of Earth and physical reality. But thoughts themselves, in the way we express it, no, they don't become things. It's your belief that creates your experience of reality. Emotions And thoughts and behaviors reinforce the belief and then create an experience that is reflected to you that again reinforces the belief. It's what you believe to be true that creates your reality experience. The thoughts are a secondary side effect used by the belief structure to reinforce the belief and make it seem more real. So sometimes your thoughts will be in alignment with the beliefs and certain things will manifest accordingly. And sometimes your thoughts may not be in alignment because there may be confusion within you as to whether or not you're actually buying into the belief, and you may have different thoughts about that. And so sometimes those things will not align and the thoughts will not reinforce the belief and create a manifestation. But the emotions, the thoughts, and the behaviors are secondary effects used by belief systems to reinforce the reality of them so that they seem like facts when they're not. They're nothing but a perspective.
So the idea that it's a trinity, with positive, negative, and neutral,
Yes.
um, that's also our manifestation, right?
Well, no. In that sense, you have your own manifestation of it, yes. But what we're talking about when we say positive, negative, and neutral is a description of one of the basic structures of existence itself. But you can create your own manifestation and experience of that structure.
So when people focus on the dark side, so to speak,
Yes.
where they have a lot of energy in that direction,
Yes.
it's the manifestations that come from that focus
Yes.
primarily, right? As
Yes.
opposed
Yes. Yes.
to the idea that this is a duality or a trinity, and there's always going to be negative, right?
Negative will never go away. Positive will never go away. Neutral will never go away. These are attributes of the basic structure of existence itself. But it's your experience of these things that determines how you create them in your reality, how you play with them, how you stylize them in your experience of your reality.
So, one of the fundamental shifts that your civilization made was in relating to negative energy in a completely different way than we as humans are relating to it presently.
Yes, because we don't invalidate it. We know it's an equally valid choice. We simply realize that it makes no sense for us to choose it at this point in our evolution.
And
But we don't invalidate it.
in our evolution, it looks like human fear and war and things like that have been here with us forever. So we clearly have a relationship with fear that
Yes,
is bringing
fearful.
about the
Your
reality that
relationship to fear is fearful. That's why one of your people said the only thing you have to fear is fear itself, because your relationship to fear is a fearful one. You can develop a positive relationship with fear, and then you won't experience it as fear in the same way. If fear is nothing more than a messenger, defined as a messenger bringing you information about a belief you're holding on to that you may not be aware of in your unconscious mind, that isn't serving you, that's out of alignment with who you prefer to be, then fear is doing you a favor by bringing it to your attention. So you have to simply develop a more positive relationship and not a fearful relationship with fear. Again, this is one of the techniques of negative beliefs, is that they will sort of double down on things so that it makes it seem more confusing or difficult to break through that particular wall or barrier that it gets you to believe exists. So it's not only the idea that the negative belief will generate fear, but it will generate fear of looking at the fear. It will create double denials, because a person who is in denial is also in denial that they're in denial. These layers that these negative beliefs use in this way are what make it seem more challenging to break through. But if you understand again that that's how negative beliefs work, then you can easily evaporate those so-called barriers, because you simply see them as nothing more than a device that the negative belief is using to get you to buy into the idea that finding this negative belief and letting it go is more of a challenge than it actually is.
So, like, humans like these scary movies and things like that, so we're still in this process of exploring fear,
Yes, yes.
wanting to control it. This is a full-on exploration of fear here on this planet,
Here's
right?
a good aquatic analogy of the idea of a negative belief. You are familiar with the creature on your planet, the animal on your planet in the ocean that you call a pufferfish?
Yes.
The idea is that it is actually a relatively tiny fish. But when it feels threatened, it puffs itself up to make itself look bigger than it is in its natural state. Well, this is what negative beliefs do. They're actually really small, fragile things. But in order to make you afraid of them, afraid of actually looking at them, investigating them, letting them go, they have to puff themselves up and look all spiky and spiny so that you don't want to touch them. But you have to understand it's just a trick to get you to buy into the idea that it's more dangerous to go toward them than it is to leave them alone. So
And
negative beliefs are like pufferfish.
and, like, also things like fear of the occult, and the idea that certain things make the hair stand up on the back of your neck because it feels so evil, that kind
Well,
of a
there can be many
experience.
things that actually cause that physiological reaction in you that have nothing to do with negativity. Many times your body will simply react to a completely different frequency that way that you're not used to. But yes, again, if you associate and define things that way toward the negative, that's how you're going to interpret and experience them.
So there's a completely different way of relating to what we classically call evil that
Yes.
is so terrifying and paranormal, and it's that shift. If we make that shift, then we won't experience this level of peril and
Yes.
fear when we're
Well,
experiencing.
again, paradoxically, the beauty of the language that you speak when you pay attention is that if you reverse the word evil, you have the word live. So, evil, in a sense, is someone who is simply not living up to their potential.